In 1951, the political philosopher Hannah Arendt wrote her landmark first book called The Origins of Totalitarianism. What she did, a Jewish refugee from Nazi Germany, she went back to examine how Nazism came to power. And not only how Nazism came to power, but how Bolshevism, how communism came to power in Russia. What were the social characteristics of those pre-totalitarian societies? And how could we identify if a society was pre-totalitarian? She came up with a few signs that a society may be pre-totalitarian. The first one, the overwhelming one, is loneliness and social atomization. Both pre-revolutionary Russia and pre-Nazi Germany were societies that were coming apart. People felt very lonely and atomized from each other. There was a lot of social turmoil, and this set people up for totalitarian domination. We have that in spades here in America today. Another factor that Arendt cited was losing faith in hierarchies and institutions. The things that gave structure and meaning to life, the social structures, when people began to lose faith in them, that also set them up for totalitarian domination. We're dealing with that here in America today. If you look at the Gallup polls, most social institutions, whether it's the church, whether it's aspects of government, whether it's big business, most of them do not have the faith of the people anymore. The only institution that people really seem to believe in, a majority of people believe in, is the military. This is not good. This is a sign of a pre-totalitarian society. A third aspect of a pre-totalitarian society is the desire to transgress and to destroy. In pre-Nazi Germany, the elites were happy to see the mobs smashing through the institutions of society because they thought it was interesting to see people who had been excluded suddenly demand that they be included. The problem with that was once they destroyed those institutions, there was nothing left to protect the people from totalitarianism. A fourth aspect of a pre-totalitarian society is the willingness to believe useful lies. In other words, people quit desiring to know and to believe the truth and rather chose to believe things that they knew were lies or had reason to believe were lies because it made them feel good. We see this happening in our country too, because it's not the truth, but it fits an ideology. On the right, we have QAnon. And the conspiracy theories that QAnon put out there about who was really running the government. These things went rampant on the political and cultural right, especially around the last presidential election. It's really, really important and a very dangerous sign when people would rather believe lies that make them feel good, as opposed to the truth. And finally, identity politics are a big aspect of a pre-totalitarian society. You know, in communism, the line between good and evil passed between classes, social classes. In 1918, Martin Latsis, who was the head of the secret police in Ukraine under the new Soviet regime, he sent out instructions to his agents as they were going to inflict the Red Terror, the murders and the exiles and the beatings of people to try to force them to accept communism. He told his agents, when you go out into the field, don't ask whether any individual is guilty. Rather, ask which class they belong to. If they're workers or peasants, they're good. If they are kulaks, which is to say rich farmers, or people who are in the bourgeoisie, the middle class, they're bad. The line between good and evil is between the classes. Similarly, in our society today, people on the woke side, in other words, the progressive ideologues, are using identity politics of race, of sexual orientation, and gender identity to divide people between good and evil. This is a seed of totalitarianism. You know, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the great Soviet dissident, said that the line between good and evil does not pass between social classes or races. It passes right down the middle of every human heart. This is a truth that we have to hold on to now if we're going to resist identity politics totalitarianism. Finally, another sign of a coming totalitarian society is something that Arendt didn't know, because it's something that emerged out of technology, contemporary technology. And that's called the social credit system. In China today, every Chinese citizen has a file on him or her inside the computers of the state. The state does constant monitoring on each individual because they have to use the internet for everything. China is a largely cashless society in which people use their smartphones to do all their transactions. All of this data are collected by the Chinese state and sent through the algorithms, artificial intelligence algorithms, to create a social credit rating for each individual. A social credit rating is simply a way of determining who's loyal, who's a good citizen by communist standards, and who's bad. So if you download the speeches of the leader Xi Jinping, well, you'll get a higher social credit rating and you'll get more privileges. You can shop in the best stores, go to the best restaurants, your kids can go to the best colleges. But if you do bad things, according to the government, like if your GPS says that you've been in the vicinity of a church or you've been hanging out with people who are Christians, well, you'll get a lower social credit score, and that will make it harder for you to buy or sell in that system. The only thing standing between us, the American people, and the social credit system is politics. But big business today, Google, Amazon, as well as major corporations, banks, and others, they collect this data from us legally all the time now. And this is not conspiracy theory, this is actually happening legally. And the only thing we have to worry about, though, is when this data starts to be weaponized against us. One thing that Americans, especially American conservatives, really don't understand about the world we're living in today is a lot of us who were raised in the Cold War, or like me, who came of age under Reagan, we tend to think that the state is the enemy and that business, big business, major corporations, things like that, they are actually standing for liberty. That is no longer true. Big business has embraced wokeness and identity politics in a tremendous way now and has become the main driver of these things in American society. In 2015, there was a battle in the state of Indiana over religious liberty. The state of Indiana passed a law, Governor Mike Pence signed it into law, saying that there would be some religious liberty protection for people who were sued for discrimination. It wouldn't guarantee that they would win, but it would give them some protection. Big business, major corporations like Apple Computers, like Salesforce and others, came into the state of Indiana and said, if you don't take away this law, this bigoted law, there will be economic consequences. And they meant it. The state of Indiana repealed the law, and that was the last time there was any serious effort to protect religious liberty in any state. It was the first time, too, that big business had ever taken sides that way in the culture war. It became the Waterloo for religious and social conservatives. So I warn people, don't conceive of our world in a 1950s Cold War way where the state is the only enemy and business is our friend. In fact, business has made itself an enemy of people of faith and people who hold traditional moral values. And because of that, totalitarianism is a lot closer than people think.